it's in those moments of connection and building trust that we actually build this resilience cushion to be able to handle that stress that's going to come at us tomorrow at work. It's helping build this protective shield because we feel like we're not in this life alone.
Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Hello, friend. Welcome to the show. I have a new best friend, Allie, with me, and I am really excited about this because she has some building blocks to help us deal with stress, modern day, every day, anything that's going to hit you. How do I deal with it? Is it one way I can do them all? Or do I have different strategies for different types of stress? And so Allie, our expert, is going to help us. The information about her is in the show notes. So Allie, help me deal with stress because I've had a whirlwind of them lately.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is great to be here, Laura. And haven't we all had a whirlwind of stressors in one way or another, whether it be through our professional lives or our personal lives? Because let's face it, we don't live in two different silos. They overlap on top of each other. And we really need to learn how to manage and integrate our work with our lives. And that is, something that I talk about quite a bit. And when we talk about our modern day stressors, I just like to point out that life is very different than it was 20 years ago, right? We could go home after work and we could log out and we could disconnect and we could be with our families and completely connect with them and disconnect from work. And that is much harder to do today. And I would say one of the biggest modern day stressors is the creation of boundaries. I don't know, do you have a problem creating boundaries with work and life?
Oh, absolutely. It's that cell phone. I had a boss that was like, you must be available 7/24, 365. If I call you, you will answer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you go, is everything really that important?
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting. What I remember when I was working in corporate America, which was close to 20 years ago now, we had cell phones, but we did not yet have smartphones. So although we were available, work had not quite taken over our lives at that point. Now, when I re-entered the workforce after having my 4 kids, life was incredibly different. And if you did not have a good handle on your boundaries, it was very easy, and it is very easy to wake up and grab that phone and immediately let the news of the day, the negative news cycles, or maybe it's that first email from the boss or from a client, or maybe it's a social media scroll, which is not important, but it absolutely is starting you at a deficit. All of these things are affecting how we are able to manage our stress throughout the day. And so one of my first modern day stressors is that cell phone. The fact that we're looking at it much more than we are actually looking at people and connecting with individuals, which inherently gives us more of an ability to manage our stress.
The part about, that old cell phone, I remember I was the last person that wanted to give up my BlackBerry. I was like, no.
No, you and my husband, actually.
I am not giving this up. I like the little buttons.
Yes.
And, you didn't have all the emails and all the texts. And it could have been they existed. They just weren't heavily used.
Mm-hmm.
But, as you wake up in the morning and your phone's going ding, 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 and you go, oh, great. Who's not showing up for work today?
Mm-hmm.
How do I need to cover for someone who's too sick? And
right.
it get frustrating. And it does start right out to the beginning of your day. You're looking at that thing even before you've gotten your feet out of bed.
Exactly. And so life in 2025, especially when it comes to integrating work and life. The most important message that I hope to relay to people is we have to be incredibly intentional with where we're giving our time and where we're putting our focus. Because if we don't control that, the world around us that knows that we are constantly available will take our attention from us. And at the end of the day, we end up feeling unfulfilled, unproductive, and exhausted.
I started putting my phone in the other room so I didn't hear it go off until I was ready for it. Because
Excellent.
I didn't think anything was
Yeah.
that important that 5 o'clock in the morning, some text message comes in. Half the time it's not even important. And it's disturbing my beautiful sleep.
Yes. Well, you lead me to one of the biggest challenges that this little device is causing is it's interrupting our sleep. And it's for several different reasons. One, as you know, if you've ever slept with a phone on your nightstand, it's just so easy to grab it when it's your normal bedtime and start scrolling because that scroll knows what we want to read about. It's dishing us things that are really interesting to us. Sometimes it's negative and that could keep us up all night. But that, in addition to the blue light, really interrupts our sleep patterns and reduces the number of hours of sleep we're getting at night. Or maybe you wake up in the middle of the night and grab it to check the clock, and all of a sudden you get sucked into a notification for a news article. So one of the most important strategies that I teach is if there's any way to create that geographical boundary, as you have done, and get the phone out of the room, or at least out of arm's length, that is incredibly helpful to our sleep cycles. And as we know, sleep is such an important keystone habit in managing our stress.
Oh, I mean, your brain and your body and everything have to recover after a
Absolutely.
day. And that sleep report that you get on your phone, if you wear your watch to bed, kind of
Yes.
can be disturbing. Like you only recovered 68% of your physical, and you go,
Yes. Yes.
how can
That's
I sleep
stressful in
better?
itself, right? Stressful in itself. So sleep is really a great foundational. That's even before I get to my building blocks. Sleep is a keystone habit that we all need to care for, in terms of our lifestyle that will help us create other healthier habits. But there are a lot of things that we can do. If you don't mind, I just wanted to share my first building block that I like to share to help people, what I call build a resilience cushion. Help manage these micro stressors, which are coming mostly from the screens in our life. Okay. So help manage the micro stressors of today's world and really prepare us for that inevitable unknown that's going to come tomorrow that we don't even know about yet. We really want to have minimal mental strength to be able to handle what's going to come at us because anything goes right in today's world. But there are a few things we can do. So the first thing I love to share is managing our negative mindset. We have a negativity bias, which you probably know, and people take, let's say, media takes advantage of that. If we don't control the media coming into us, it can be incredibly deflating and depressing. So that is one simple strategy. Read your news every morning, okay? And then shut it down. Don't be scrolling news or listening to it all day. Another thing I like to remind people of in terms of managing your negative is making sure, because we have this negativity bias, that we are celebrating our wins every day. Whether you want to call it celebrating or simply acknowledging, really take the time to point out one thing that's going well each day. Sometimes that could be in the form of a gratitude journal, or sometimes that's simply saying, okay, what went well? Because that helps us to balance that negativity bias. So I'm not sure, do you have any type of gratitude practice or any type of win acknowledgement?
I do have a gratitude journal that I focus on almost every day.
Excellent.
And then I had a guest on that talked about a to-done list, and I haven't incorporated it yet, but we always look at this big, long thing of all the things we need to do. But if you can say, here's all the things I did, what a reward.
Absolutely.
Look at the volume of what we actually did. And getting up and getting showered is a big to-done.
Yes.
We do that every day, but you don't think about it. And
No.
we need to celebrate all those things.
And I think especially as high achievers, if you're considering an executive woman, and I know many of them who fit this mold, we have big goals, we have big aspirations. And with our eyes always on these goals, we are kicking it down the road. It's never enough unless we are taking the time to, what I loved learning in this book called The Gap and the Gain, is to measure backwards. Where was I a year ago? I didn't know how to do this. I've grown this skill. And all of a sudden, you feel a heck of a lot better than if you were just focused on the space between where you are today and where that goal was set. So that is a great way to manage, one of the many ways that I teach that we can manage our negative mindset.
And you call this the resilience block. And this is how, shit's going to happen. It's going to kick us down. And we just, it just is. It's what we learn to go through. But if you can find ways that when it does happen, it doesn't knock you all the way to the ground, or you have a ladder right there to get you right back up. What are the things we need to build into our lives? And, when you only look at all the things to do, it can be overwhelming. And yes, we do have lofty goals. And yes, we want to go to the next step. That's the person who doesn't want to do that is not here.
Yes.
We want to succeed and be highly effective people. So it is very, very important. And we'll put the link to this book in the show notes so that we
that's
those
a
who
great
want
book.
to get it can do that.
Excellent. Well, I really just brushed on 2 of my 5 building blocks of resilience: managing the negative and cultivating the positive. So cultivating the positive through focusing on something called self-directed neuroplasticity is when we are focused on things that are going well or things that evoke positive emotion, so that we start thinking that way automatically. It becomes our natural default. So talked a little bit about managing the negative and cultivating the positive. Another thing that's really important in our modern day, considering all the noise around us and all these little micro stressors coming at us, is finding quiet in a crazy world. You can call it mindfulness, but mindfulness, creating space in your day, free of a screen, free of distractions, where we can sit in solitude, even if that's 3 or 5 minutes. I know I'm not asking people to go out and do a 30-minute meditation, but if you are an incredibly busy individual, taking little spaces, maybe between meetings or on a commute, where we're shutting that radio off or shutting the podcast off, as great as that podcast might be, and having just 5 minutes of quiet. Because it's in those moments of solitude that we often find some of the best solutions to our problems. And if we're not creating that space, and we're trying to do it from a busy, stressed out moment, we're coming at it from a very constricted approach. And so you often see many more solutions when you have little pieces of quiet throughout your day. So that's another thing that I highly recommend to people, especially our overachieving executive, who I know a lot of. So
yes, we like to keep going. It feels so good to keep winning. That yes, we do like that.
And another thing, Laura, is with these cell phones in our hands, if you're anything like me, you might have 5 minutes of quiet in a car or in a grocery line or between meetings, and it's an automatic gut reaction that we take it and we start scrolling, especially if you're feeling a little uncomfortable about something, and it fills this void with stuff. Right? And often people think that they are decompressing by taking a few minutes to themselves to mindlessly scroll, when really it's adding to the cortisol and stress because of what we're seeing in terms of comparison, negative news, and what we generally find on our scrolls. So if there's any way to put that aside during those quiet moments, it's so easy
leave
to
it in
grab
the car while you go in the store. There's so many
One of
ways.
the many ways. That's a great idea.
Don't take it to the bathroom with you.
Yes.
It's like,
But let me tell you, if you're used to bringing it in a store, it's like you're leaving a child in the car. You're like, where is it? Oh my gosh, So it's definitely it's getting used to.
you can feel naked without it. That's an important accessory.
Yes.
That keeps us connected. So
Exactly. that's perfect. I'm going to go on to my fourth building block, which is connection, social connection. And I'm a big fan of one of the longest longitudinal studies done by Harvard, which is I call it the Good Life Study. A book was written last year by Marc Waldinger, who is one of the doctors from Harvard who has been doing this. He is one of the many researchers who have been doing it for close to 100 years now. And it's the largest study of human happiness and health that has ever been done. And what they do is they're taking individuals from birth straight through life and really analyzing the decisions and lives that they're living. And from the beginning of this study, people would ask them, so what is the biggest predictor? And they say, hands down, the strength of our relationships is what determines both our health and our happiness in the end. So he really encourages us, as busy as we might feel. And it's really easy with these devices all around us and being constantly available to everyone to feel busy every moment of the day if we let it. But it's incredibly important to carve out space, even in those busy times, for some sort of social connection. That could be a quick phone call to your mom or your friend. It could be the quick coffee date or drink out with somebody who maybe you don't feel like you have time for because work's really busy right now. But I want people to recognize that it's in those moments of connection and building trust that we actually build this resilience cushion to be able to handle that stress that's going to come at us tomorrow at work. And it's helping build this protective shield because we feel like we're not in this life alone.
The connections to me is so important. But as an introvert, I can also get too much of it.
Absolutely.
And it's like, I love the one-on-one. I love the time or 3 or 4 people in these small groups where you feel like you all connect, but everybody's different. And I know friends that want my husband wants the big crowds, the lots of noise, the lots of stuff. And so you get both. You compromise. I'll go to the crazy stuff if you can have the quiet things with me too.
Yes.
It's like, let's share this. But it is what rejuvenates you. And what is that connection? Some people really, really rely on family. Others rely on friends. And
yes,
I know people that all they have is their pet.
Yeah.
And it is a connection. It may not, to some of us, feel like it could be as deep or as important, but knowing that you have something out there besides you is, I got someone in my court. I'm not alone.
Exactly. Knowing that, you have someone by your side. I think what Robert Waldinger suggests is that we all should have 2 people in our lives that we could call in the middle of the night in case of an emergency. He definitely is not an advocate for the lots of acquaintances or don't count your Facebook friends as real friends, but knowing that you have just a couple close people who are in your court is really important. It's the quality of those connections.
Don't call me. It's in the other room.
Exactly. Well, there are ways, that's actually a question I get quite a bit. Well, I don't want to take my phone out of my room because what if my elderly mom calls in the middle of the night? So there are a lot of things that you can do by using some logistical settings on the phone and, only let certain numbers through. So I just wanted to let you know that there are ways around that.
That is so true, because you can mute everybody except for these 3 people in this time frame. So I just haven't taken advantage of that.
Exactly. So I'm going to touch, before we end here, on the last, and I think it's really one of the most important building blocks, and that is goal setting and getting. Again, something that is not foreign to, many of us women and individuals who just want to do so much in this world, right? We want to do so much. And, but we have to be careful also about burning out. But it's so easy today to feel like this world is so out of control. I mean, you just turn on the news and there's, economic uncertainty and there's global unrest. And there are all these things that can really make us feel that we don't have any control over where our lives are going. And I want to encourage everyone, no matter who you are, to have some sort of process in place by which you identify your goals and you're executing on even little tiny steps towards that North Star. because it empowers us and it helps us see that we really have a lot of agency in this world. It helps us to, just setting a goal helps us to really narrow down, what do we value in this life? What do we see as success? Because my success is different than your success is different than your success. What's important? Where do we want to be? And what could be the path to get there? And then just those little tiny steps along the way, even if they're the tiniest of little things daily, these little micro steps help give us a burst of dopamine. I like to say that's the good dopamine, which keep us going and keep us motivated and keep us feeling really content. So goal setting is really important as long as we're doing it in a way that's also incorporating the social connections, the breaks, and not working ourselves around the clock without having some sort of care for ourselves. And care, I don't mean you have to go to the spa. I just mean take those little breaks and make sure you're caring for your mental well-being at the very minimal level.
That part about taking that break is, it can be the simplest little thing. And I remember times when I didn't feel like I could leave my desk, but I could do a few deep breaths and let go of stress, or put on the headset with some meditation type music to just drown out the noise. And so you can take those cute little breaks and nobody really knows. It's not like you are just disappeared. Like, not that we're trying to fool people, but those things keep us sharp. It reminds me of Stephen Covey's book about sharpening the saw. And, you've got these two people who are racing to cut down the tree the fastest. And the one guy just keeps sawing and sawing and sawing. This other guy keeps sitting down. He's like, I'm going to win. I'm going to win. And the guy sits down again. It's like going and going. And all of a sudden, the guy that kept sitting down cut his tree down first. And why? He took the time to sharpen his saw. He took the time to stay in the game. And these are the way we win, is by taking care of that inside of us. What keeps you sharp?
Yes. So well said. And, I think that we are going through a shift right now in the professional world, where leaders are recognizing that longer duration of working hours does not always translate to more productivity and good product. And we have to, even when we're working in the workplace, really try our best to time block and focus on our work and push our distractions aside, and then focus on responding to people, and then focus on more of your deeper work. Because this multitasking is incredibly hurtful in terms of causing burnout. And this is going on in every industry. So having those breaks where we can push our devices aside and take a few breaths like you do is incredibly beneficial.
When I was a young executive, so 20 years ago, a long time ago, can't even remember, I worked for an advertising agency. And one of the things that just kind of surprised me was we had basketball, we had ping pong, we had all these things for people to de-stress with during the day, which in my mind was so unheard of in the workplace. But now it's in like video games and Lego rooms and all sorts of things all over the place. And so that old fashioned, that what we were able to see in this advertising agency,
it's amazing.
It's norm for everybody. And it's kind of.
I have a question for you, Laura. In that environment, although they had these games, was the corporate culture, in a sense, healthy enough so that you felt comfortable taking advantage of those well-being perks?
Our creative people were always in there.
That's great.
I always just like, how did they get anything done? Well, you know what? The things they're getting done are up here. Mine might have been paper-based because that was my job. Their job was to come up with ideas. And that was the way that the workplace encouraged that it's okay to look outside the box.
Yeah.
And
They
so
were before their time, for sure.
it was fun, but
Yeah, that's great. And as well as I know that there have been so many times where you're kind of coming to a little bit of a roadblock in your work, and it's that checking out and taking a break and taking a 5-minute walk or whatever it looks like for you. Then you come back, and all of a sudden it all comes together. So
you
they knew
know,
what they were doing 30 years ago.
I was a programmer for a while in my early career.
Yeah.
And I remember being stuck on a problem and researching and figuring out how to make the computer do this.
Yeah.
And I went to bed and I woke up in the middle of the night with a solution and went, wow, went back to work, it worked. And so it taught me that sometimes a quiet mind is more productive than overthinking and trying to figure it out. And it's like, how do we get to that quiet mind spot? That's when I started learning to meditate. That's when I started learning to do some of these other things that quiets the mind from, if you focus on the problem, guess what you're going to see?
Yeah.
The problem.
Yeah.
And it's when we can let go of that and focus on just letting it be whatever. And then all of a sudden solutions come.
Yes. Taking a step back. And I like to say, looking at it from the clouds, right? Without getting pulled in with the emotion. And if we're able to kind of look at it from those quiet moments, that's when the solutions come. So that's a great example.
Yeah, it's fun. Now that's been all 4 of your blocks, right?
Yes, actually, I combined the first 2, the managing the negative and cultivating the positive, where the negative was, recognizing that we have this negativity bias, and, managing that through purposefully evoking the positive. And then we went through the mindfulness, whether it be through meditation or quiet moments, but making sure we have a little bit of quiet in today's world that would love to fill up every piece of real estate in our minds, right? Social connection and the importance of social connection. And then the last one was how critical goal setting is in a world that can feel very chaotic.
And with goal setting, what I like to make sure we have permission is it's okay to change your goal if your life changes. And sometimes we're like, well, I was going to do this and I've got to do this.
Yes.
If your life changes, everything you've done up to that point towards that goal is still a value of whatever new goal you choose. And give yourself permission to get to that T in the road and choose again. It's okay to choose again. And so many of us I'm going to be married by this date, and I'm going to be college graduate by this date, and I'm going to have children by this date. Life sometimes doesn't happen just as we mapped it out. It's okay.
Yeah, I wholeheartly agree with you. I have a small coaching group of entrepreneurs. It's really the only thing I do outside the workplace setting. And we work in 3-month increments. We like to have a vision and maybe do some visualization goal exercises where you can kind of see or envision, what you would like life to look like 1 to 5 years down the road. But we work in 3-month increments, knowing that the important thing is that we're looking out towards some sort of North Star, giving ourselves direction, but we have to be flexible in the steps along the way. And it's not always going to be exactly the steps that we think we're going to take. And we're always changing, slightly the direction that we're going in. So
it's how
I
we
agree with you more.
Shoot an arrow, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
You aim and you fire. And
Exactly.
the closer you get, the more apt you're going to hit the target right on.
Yes.
And so it's
Well, I was going to say, and even if we see we're heading in not the perfect direction, let's say, just having the self-confidence that we've gained through executing on these little goals is incredibly powerful, because it's showing us, okay, I can change direct. If I could get there and I did this, well, then I can get there as well. Again, giving us those little bursts of dopamine and giving us the confidence to continue to move forward. So
Oh, so this has been packed full of little pieces of wisdom. It's
Yes, I
like,
hope I didn't overwhelm you, Laura.
no, I'm not overwhelmed. I think it's been beautiful. And I think hearing it is one thing, but implementing it, sometimes it's a baby step.
Yes.
So let's take a quick break, get a word from our sponsor. When we come back, what's that one thing that we could choose to work on right now? So we'll be right back.
Hey, since I rarely have openings in my coaching schedule, I have a new resource out there on my website. It is called the BFF Coaching Network. And I have offered a spot there for any coach that has been on the show to list their coaching. You can go out there, you can listen to their episodes, you can feel a little bit about them, and then choose a coach that will work for you. So LauraJaneLayton.com, the BFF Coaching Network.
All right, Allie. What do you think is that one thing that if there's nothing else that they can fit into their day right now that they could take to move towards a more peaceful life?
Well, this is really hard to choose one thing, Laura, but I'm going to answer this in kind of two separate answers. But if you are somebody who struggles with sleep hygiene, I feel that that is the place that you have to start, because tightening up and creating healthy habits around your sleep will help you much more effectively implement all of the other things that we talked about today. If you do not have issues with sleep and you're sleeping, 7 to 8 hours and you think you're getting adequate sleep, my recommendation is to start every day with a few minutes of quiet and really try to have little pockets. Another thing very important, to try to have 5-minute pockets of solitude between meetings. I think that's really important to help you reset your stress response and to be able to thoughtfully and more productively go into that next meeting with more intention.
I put a 15-minute before and after buffer on all my meetings. So it ends up being 30 minutes. But yeah, any amount is better than none. But I do think that it's great to get that process of the prior meeting done.
Yeah.
Because you don't just walk out and it goes away. There's a lot that you need to contemplate and implement. So,
yes.
Right. All right. So this week, if we don't sleep well, we're going to work on our sleep.
Yes.
And we might as well work on our pockets of quiet time first thing in the morning. And so everybody can do the second part. First thing in the morning and throughout the day.
Exactly.
And gap your meetings if at all possible. I know so many times trying to get the right people in the meeting, you have to book back to back.
Yes.
But especially with the modern day where it's all online and you just connect from one and you jump on the other and you don't even get out of your seat. Stand up and turn around and at least let your butt rest.
Yes. Well, and along those lines, if you have any say in the execution of that meeting or you're leading it, share with the people how you care for their well-being, and you know that the science says that we all need a small reset throughout the day. And, for those purposes, you'll be ending, you'd like to wrap things up 5 minutes early to give people a little bit of a reset before their next hour. I think people really appreciate that and they welcome that, and they often respect it more when they understand a little bit more about why you're cutting the meeting off.
Yeah, there's one person that I meet with regularly that if we have back-to-back, he says, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And we will reconnect in 5 minutes.
Excellent. Excellent.
Like he's already doing that. So this is great. Allie, tell our friend about you and what you do and how to get a hold of you if they're interested, because you are full of amazing information.
Oh, well, I so appreciate you having me here today, Laura. But I'm Allie Meyers. I'm a workplace well-being advocate and trainer and speaker. And I have a few different programs. My 5 to Thrive, I touched on some of my building blocks today, and my Flourish at Work programs, which are workshops and keynote talks that help teach actionable and science-based strategies to leaders and teams and individuals, teaching them ways that they can integrate some of these building blocks into their own lives for their own personal stress management, as well as teaching leaders how they can take these principles and weave them into how they're managing their teams to help preserve the well-being of their teams and their organizations. You can find me at AllisonMyers.com, so that I think you'll probably have that below. And I'm also very active on LinkedIn, where I give a lot of free resources. Actually, I'm happy to give you my Stress Slayer guide, which you can put in the show notes. That's a free resource for 5 quick 5-minute or less stress management exercises. It's kind of a nice resource to have like next to your laptop if you're, having a day where you're feeling a bit overwhelmed. I'm happy to share that. So LinkedIn, Instagram, and my website are the 3 easiest ways to find me.
Well, thank you so much. And yes, that link to that stressor 5
Happy to do it. Happy to share it.
In the show notes. So thank you so much for joining us. Friend, Allie and I are not medical or mental licensed professionals. We're here for entertainment. People that have found ways to help ourselves want to share with you and hope you can lighten your load on your journey to your next goal. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss the next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.